Alright, we're going to talk about combustible paper cartridges. As you know, if you're a subscriber to my channel and watch the channel, I've been fooling around with everyone's different devices, from the simple mandrels to that cross and cartridge former, which, again, you get what you pay for. It's an interesting tool, it's well designed, and it does make a good cartridge with a little practice. The thing about combustible cartridges is a lot of it also depends on your manual dexterity, how well you make the cartridge, how well you glue it, and your technique. Okay? So, we're going to bring in two things. Is it worth going through all the trouble to make your combustible paper cartridges for your cap and ball revolver? And also, I've found that in their use, there may have to be some modifications to the gun. Okay, there has to be some upgrades done, and I will explain that as we go along. Okay, so let's take a look at the two guns I've tried to shoot some of this out of, these combustible cartridges. Alright, the two weapons that I used was the Colt 1860 Army, and I used the Johnson & Dow, Era's Gone Johnson & Dow bullet on paper cartridges made from coffee filters that are nitrated on the cross and cartridge former in this gun. I've shot a few others I tried doing with cigarette papers, didn't quite like it. But this is the one I actually got almost 4 cylinders out, if you see the video of me doing it, until I had a cap jam. I tried making some paper cartridges with Guns of the West, I believe, his little red mandrel and dipper and all that, or the powder measure and that, in his former. Again, I did not use cigarette papers. I used coffee filters that were nitrated. I found that when I tried to load the cartridges, they would not go in. It's like the paper was too thick or something, which I don't really quite understand what happened, but I could not get them seated in the cylinder far enough. It's like the cartridge was too wide. I may have screwed up and cut the paper too wide and doubled it up. It could be an adjustment there. It was my first try, but I had trouble with it. Okay, so even though I did it and got the 4 or 5 cartridges off, there was residue in there, but I can't honestly say one way or the other what happened. Now, with this gun, you've seen the video where I shot almost 4 cylinders, so I had that massive cap jet. Okay. And so what we'll do is we will look at, I'm going to stop, and we're going to look at, when I washed out this cylinder, what I found residue-wise in the base of these cylinders. Alright, now they got the soap suds clear. We're going to stick this in there, this cylinder, and we're going to see how much of the paper residue is left. Let that soak a little while. Take this brush, put it down in there. I do give it a turn. There. There's that. So those bases build up, I think, is what we're going to find. There. Again, in that one. So it looks like yep. Now I did get 4 cylinders off. But it looks like the base cups, and that's what I've been finding. That's pretty good amount of residue in there. Oh, there's more of it. That might have been one of the ones that didn't go off. Yeah, there we go. And we have more paper remnant in there because it didn't ignite. Yeah, but every single one of them's got that wad of unburnt paper at the bottom of the cylinder. Okay guys, so that's my thoughts on some more of my thoughts on the paper cartridges, the combustible paper cartridges. They do leave a residue. There it is right there. They do leave, especially the bases. See that one there, that's built up. That's the 3 or 4 of them. So yeah, this builds up over time. You notice there's a hole in the center of them. The cap blows through them. Notice that big hole. But they do leave remnants, which probably will build up over time. So that's my thoughts on that. I got a lot of work ahead of me here the rest of this afternoon to get this gun back together. But as you see, it just comes to territory with these weapons. Alright, so as you've seen in that clip, no matter what you use, because when I use the hairdresser paper and the thinner paper in some of my experiments, the bases of the paper cartridge build up in the very bottom of the cylinder. And like when I pulled it out, they have a hole in there. So the force of the cap is blowing a hole through the paper, okay, but it leaves a remnant which builds up over, repeated shooting. Now what I found is when I was doing this, of course I lost the sight, I might try to get that installed tomorrow, but when I would fire that, I noticed there was a buildup in pressure also. The more I fired it, it seemed it would recoil harder, and then I was getting it to where the hammer, once we fire it, the hammer would kind of come back a bit, okay, from the pressure coming out of the nipple, okay, and it would be, now under normal circumstances that does not happen, okay, so that meant that when I fired it with the paper cartridge, there's pressure building up inside there and kicking the hammer back. So when it fired, it would actually knock the hammer back up a little, okay? So we're getting a pressure buildup. Now, that on this gun, and plus on the Colt design guns, you always have these cap jams or caps falling off. So I did take the people's suggestions. There are aftermarket nipples that you can put on there, supposedly disregarding the paper cartridge, but on a Colt style gun you can get I think it's Slick's nipples, and put it on there, and a lot of these problems of cap jams and that will go away. So that's, from that alone, I'm going to get the modification, plus the fact that the cap jams are an ongoing thing. So that's going to be a modification. That's pretty simple. You pull out the old ones, put in the new ones, new type. Okay. Also, not related to the paper cartridges, with my 1851, I've always gotten some sort of a damn cap jam in there. When I was testing the Big Lube bullets and putting 20 grains in there, it shot well, but it was flattening them caps out. They were dropping down, inside here. One actually fell down into the action, and every time I've shot these guns, and the Walker especially, I've had to totally disassemble them, the whole thing, and get into the mechanism, and I found hunks or parts of the cap wedged into the internal components. So that is going to be a modification, not so much because of the paper cartridges, well, yeah, because that aggravates the back pressure on these, I believe, but also the inherent cap jams that come with the Colt design, okay? But all in all, I was impressed. 4 cylinders, like I said, the only thing that was getting me nervous is it seemed like it was building up pressure. It ended up knocking the front sight off on the 4th cylinder. And it did seem like there was more recoil because more stuff was accumulating in the cylinder. But that's something I'm going to have to work on a little bit more and test out more and see if we can translate this, try to get some decent 36, cartridges made up and see how it all goes. But that's how far I got so far with the work I've done, experimentation on these, and also leading us into another fix or modification video when we discuss changing out the nipples and other things.